That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, that don't sound right, send us a comment. You're one of us. So
I'm not, but I don't think I would have said anything that would cause anyone any alarm.
Oh, no. We would
because I had a map, I had the route, I had the compass, I'd done this before.
Sure.
This way. Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts. I'm Peter Bielman.
I'm Cecil Davis.
Hey, we're just trying to have a conversation without Googling something after Cecil says something strange or I say something ridiculous. We're not going to fact check it. We're just going to keep talking through it. Maybe even challenge and disagree. That's how we used to talk.
We did used to talk like that.
What happened?
And the collective we. That's how the collective we used to talk.
That's right.
You'd sit around your dorm room and you would argue about something that nobody could prove one way or the other.
Exactly. And we'd spend a lot of hours doing that.
Oh, man. Solving the world's problems. Absolutely.
Well, if anyone's keeping track, we've probably spent 26 hours of talking. If you add up our average time and the number of episodes. We spent 26 hours talking about maybe what some people call utter nonsense.
We have spent a full day just talking.
So, one of the things that you might say when you hear this is that don't sound right. And what I'm going to say is this. We have been entrusted at some points in our lives to take teenagers out in the woods, hiking in the middle of nowhere, over several nights.
Your story, to me, don't sound right for a lot of reasons. And the reason, number one, is so your story takes place in Linville Gorge.
Linville Gorge in central North Carolina in the Appalachian Mountains.
If you're not familiar with Linville Gorge, I used to live up near the gorge in Spruce Pine.
Okay.
And they would fish somebody out of that gorge at least once a summer where they wandered in and got lost because the gorge isn't marked.
No, the trail system is, well, they call it a primitive area or a wilderness area. And for some reason, they decided either to disallow it or discourage marking the trails, which just doesn't sound like a good idea, but they did anyway. The trails aren't marked, so it's really dependent on the popularity of the trail, so you can even see the trail and find the trail.
Right. Or your navigational skills. Now,
also known as orienteering, map and compass, all that good stuff.
So the gorge is big. It's a big river gorge that runs in North Carolina. And once you get into the gorge, it's hard to find your way back out. But you took a youth group in there.
Yeah, I took a bunch of guys. I want to say there's probably two other leaders and must have been 10 guys because we had 2 vans worth of humans.
Wow.
Going into there.
All heavily experienced backpackers with great orientation skills. Orienting skills.
None of that. Now, I mean, I've done a lot of backpacking, and so I've done a lot of navigation. So I feel like I'm pretty competent with a map and a compass and a marked trail.
A clearly blazed trail.
Right, and so the gist of this was we were hiking. The idea is we start on the east side of the gorge, on the northern end, so that's the upstream end. We hike down into the gorge, down by the river, and then there's a trail that follows the river going south, and it's so you have to go down, cross the river, and then you follow the river down. Then you have to cross back over the river going east, and then there's a trail that takes you back up and out of the gorge.
On the east side.
Still on the east side.
So you cross back over twice.
Right, we crossed twice.
So it was you and how many leaders?
There are 2 other leaders and then about 10 guys.
10 guys. How old?
Well, all high school.
All high school.
These are all high school
So
guys.
16, 17, 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so everything was really going fine. We were a little bit behind schedule. We got down to the bottom of the river, and then we started following that trail. And then the interesting thing started to happen is that particular trail actually started to lose its shape. So what started out as a pretty worn down trail where you could, say that is a trail. It got to the point where you started to wonder, are we on the trail?
Right.
Where is the trail? Now we knew where we were because we were still following the river. And we had to get down to a certain point in the gorge where the new trail took us out.
But you had to cross over.
We had to cross over, and then you had to find the trail and then follow it out.
So was it, is there a crossing there? Or
No,
did you just have to find it?
There's no crossing. No,
Okay.
You just had to find a good place to. And we ended up taking our shoes off and walking across a shallow part. And I would say it was no more than knee deep. So it was an easy crossing. But we did have to take our shoes and socks off for a wet crossing. And so we're about ready to go, and we can't find the trail.
And you're on the west side at this point?
No, we're back on the east side.
East side. So you've crossed back over again.
Crossed back over, ready to go out.
You can't find it.
We can't find the trail. And we are looking. I sent all our scouts out. Like, go look for a trail.
Yeah.
And so they went downstream and back upstream a couple places, and they said, "Hey, is this it?" And we went and looked, and then we tried to hike, and we just couldn't find it. We couldn't find it. And so by then, it's starting to get late.
Well, at this point, though, you could have turned around.
We could have turned around, yes.
You hadn't committed to climbing out of the gorge at this point.
We had not committed.
Yeah.
But it did seem. But here's the issue. It would have been it also would have been a hard climb because, like I said, the last half of that part of that trail was virtually gone.
Right.
So we could find our way. It had been a grind.
Yeah.
Whereas if we went out the way I thought we should go out, it should be relatively straightforward. Just go up, zigzag, and work your way up.
So if you've never been in this area, this is a gorge.
Well, it's the second largest gorge in the United States.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least it's the largest gorge. Yeah, it's probably better to say it's the largest gorge east of the Mississippi River.
These are sheer rock walls in places.
In places, right.
Cliffs in places. People have died in the gorge.
Right.
People have fallen to their death.
You have to have a permit to camp there.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have.
Right. So it is.
But in all fairness, I was not planning to camp in the gorge. The plan was to go down and then back out and be out on the rim
right.
before nightfall to camp outside of the wilderness area.
Right.
So we started hiking up, and it was a grind, and it was very steep, and it got steeper and steeper, and I couldn't believe how steep it was getting. But we were in the right spot. We had our eye on the edge of the gorge. So we need to be in that what they call a saddle, kind of a low point in the ridge. Like we have to head to that saddle. That's where the trail should have been. So we kept on heading in that direction, but we were getting tired. It was at the end of the day. So we eventually had to give up for the day, and we camped alongside that hill.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
On the hill?
On the hill.
That's hard camping.
It was very hard camping. Low on water, but, we all made do. Some of the seniors really stepped up. They were carrying some of the younger guys backpacks, too. So
nice.
A couple of these guys had a backpack on the front and a backpack on the back.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, they were hardcore.
Yeah.
These guys are awesome.
Yeah. So you basically had to bivouac on the side of the hill.
Pretty much. So we get up the next morning and we have to keep on going. And so as we're making along our way up and down the side of this ridge, we eventually get to this low spot. And this is in the fall, so there's a lot of leaves on the ground, which made it difficult to find the trail in the first place. So we're off the trail. I rolled my ankle.
Ooh.
It's one of those snap rolls, right?
Yeah.
Have you rolled your ankle and you heard it snap?
Yeah.
And you wondered, is that a break or is that
right.
What was that noise?
Yeah.
But it was one of those. So I eventually found a stick to help me up, and we kept on making our way up, and we started to get into these areas where we're getting into these rock cliffs or these rock ledges, these rock walls.
Yep.
And there was a couple of them that we had to, throw our backpack over and boost each other up to get up on it.
Yep.
And eventually we got to the point where there was nowhere to go now but to go straight up the hill. Straight up the hill.
Right.
And if you've never been to the North Carolina mountains, there's these plants called mountain laurel.
Yeah.
They're like azaleas or rhododendrons.
Yeah.
And they can grow very dense and thick. And these were probably about waist high. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't stand up. So we were on our hands and knees kind of plowing through this rhododendron or through this mountain laurel.
Yep. And it is
It is hard sledding.
It's hard going, yep.
But eventually we get to the top. We finally make it to the top. I am so happy because I was really concerned. I mean, I knew where I was,
right.
But I'm thinking, are we ever going to get out of this gorge?
Right.
And we finally we cross over, and there's this just beautiful, well-worn path. Like, there it is. That's what I was looking for.
When you're going through rhododendron like that, you do start to wonder when it's going to end. It wears you down.
Yeah. In the middle of the day, when you're in the cluster of rhododendron, it's dark.
Yeah.
You're wondering, is it nightfall yet already?
So go ahead.
Yeah, so we get to the top, and one of the leaders says, okay, so how much longer do you think we have to go? And I point to this mountain way off in the distance. It's called Table Rock.
Yeah.
For anyone familiar with Linville Gorge, we started hiking between Hawksbill and Table Rock. That's where we started.
Yeah.
Went down, went south, came back up, and had to go back north to the other side of Table Rock. And he asked me, where are we going? I said, see that rock way off in the... It was pretty tiny, too.
Right.
We have to go on the other side of that.
Yeah. At least you're on the trail.
At least we're on the trail.
Yeah.
And we got to an area where it had water. And funny thing is, not one of those guys went to school on Monday.
Oh,
because they were all whooped.
Yep.
And I mean, in fairness, I was whooped too.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to go see a doctor for the sprained ankle.
So the words of wisdom are, and this will tie into my story too. Before you turn your kids loose with one of us as a youth leader, really, you need to ask some questions.
just ask some questions.
So
I'm not, but I don't think I would have said anything that would cause anyone any alarm.
Oh no! We would
because I had a map, I had the route, I had the compass. I'd done this before.
Sure,
no sweat. In fact, I hadn't hiked this route before, but I had been in the gorge before plenty of times.
You're much braver than me. I would not go in the gorge. So
all right, so you have a story also where you took some youth into the woods.
Into the woods. So,
and parents also should have questioned
Parents should have been asking all kinds of questions. So it was me, and I had two other leaders with me, who shall remain nameless to protect the innocent. And there may have been a third leader that came with us that left that night. But as I remember, the next morning it was just me and this one other guy. A couple stayed the night, but then the next day, and we had a group of younger boys. So these were like 12, 13, 14-year-old boys, like middle school boys. And maybe one even younger than that. And we had, 5 or 6 of them. So we'd gone up in the backside of Black Mountain. I don't know if you've ever been up in that area before, but it's where in like Micro, North Carolina is. Have you ever been in that area? And so we're on the backside of Black Mountain. And we were camping next to a creek.
Is this Black Mountain, the town?
No, this is the Black Mountain Range.
This is the Black Mountain Range, okay.
Yeah.
There's a Black Mountain campground, is that at the bottom of it?
There's a campground down there.
Yeah, okay.
But so this is on the back. So if the side you're talking about, the town of Black Mountain would be on the kind of the southern side. I'm on the northern side of that same range.
I got you. Yeah.
But on the back side, we're camping next to a little creek up in there. A lot of good trout fishing. But me and another leader decided we're going to go up to a place called Lower Creek. We're going to hike along the Lower Creek, and then we had the same idea that you had, which this will be another thing our kids make fun of us for.
What's that?
Doing something like. We were going to hike up and over a little rise or mountain, and come back down on another river or creek called Lower Creek.
Okay.
And so we knew where both creeks were, and we thought, and we weren't going to use a trail. We just kind of knew how to hit it. And this is an area I had never, ever hiked.
Okay, all right.
The guy that was with me had hiked it, and he was telling me where the other creek was, and so I believed him. So we started hiking along the creek, and then we turned and started up, okay? And the same thing happened. As we got up, it became more sheer. It didn't become like the gorge, but it was just covered with rhododendron.
Right.
And so at one point, we are crawling along wildlife paths under the rhododendron.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah, you're using animal trails.
We're using animal trails, and we're completely covered in it. And we go from about midway up that mountain to the top, climbing in rhododendron. I did not think we would ever get out of that mess.
But you knew you had to get to the top eventually.
We had to.
Because you were going up.
Yeah, we had to get to the top, and then we had to go down because we had to hit that other creek. And if you hit the other creek, we knew where to go because we could walk back to the road because the road crosses both creeks.
Okay.
So
did it ever occur to you that you might not make it to the creek, or the creek might not be there?
Well, a lot of things were occurring to me. Like, why were these kids with me? How was I going to protect these kids? You know, it's starting to get late. We didn't have enough water. I mean, there were so many things that had gone wrong. And we're caught up in that rhododendron, and you just had to keep going. You couldn't stop. And we're starting to see bear sign up on the mountain. And but thank God we made it to the top. It began to ease up a little bit on the rhododendron. We could stand up again and hike, which was good. And we did. We made it over the rise and down to the other side, and we found Lower Creek. And then, we were home free at that point.
Right.
But
this was a day hike?
It was a day hike.
Oh, wow.
We had been camping overnight, but this was just going to be a quick...
Just a quick jaunt over the mountain.
Yeah, a few miles over the mountain. But it ended up just being hands and knees crawling through rhododendron to get to the top.
What do you remember the reaction of the boys? What were they talking about as you were doing this?
Middle school boys are crazy resilient. And so to them, it's just this big adventure because they don't know that I'm lost. They don't know the guy with me is lost. We have nothing with us because it was just a 3-hour tour. I mean, it wasn't right. Nothing of any consequence with us.
They haven't stepped through all of the things that could go wrong in the next 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we had not found the creek and gotten hung out there at night, it could have gotten pretty bad pretty quick. Yeah, no, to them it's this big adventure, and the thought they might be on a bear trail and all that kind of stuff was just super exciting. It wasn't concerning; it was just exciting. Right. And me and the other guys, I was very concerned, but we made it back, and everybody was alive.
What was the reaction after the trip? How did they feel?
Again, middle school boys are just balls of energy, so they were all pretty good. They were scratched up pretty bad.
Yeah.
They were beat up. I was a little worried about the parents when I got home because some of them had gotten tore up pretty good up on that rhododendron. But everybody was fine. I didn't get any nasty letters.
My trip, I never heard anything from parents. Mm-hmm. I did get some remarks from some of the guys who said it's the hardest thing they had ever done. So in a way, I kind of took that as a compliment that we challenged these guys.
Yeah.
But one of the leaders, who I'll leave him unnamed too, but you know who he is. Yeah. He called that the Beelman Death March.
You can really get messed up in the woods quickly, and it's one thing if it's just you or me, because then we're just responsible for ourselves. But when you've got a bunch of kids with you, youth with you like that, it just can get.
Have you ever been in the woods alone or with maybe one other person and really started to wonder, where am I?
Yeah, I've been lost. But I've been lost in the micro sense. Because usually in the macro sense, like even if I got lost in the gorge, now this is a theoretical question. To me, if you get lost in the gorge, just like if you or I did, not with a group of kids, I feel like you could follow the river out as long as you could stay. As long as you had food and water, and you just kept going downstream, eventually you're going to come out on 40.
Right. You're eventually. In fact, there's guys and gals that kayak that river. Right. There's a takeout down there somewhere.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. I've been lost on the micro level where I don't know where I'm at. But even in those situations, I'm like, okay, I know if I walk long enough east, I'm going to hit this.
Right. Yeah. Eventually you can find yourself.
Yeah.
To a landmark to get you out. It might take you a while.
Yeah. The only time I've ever really been scared like that was with those kids.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, between Upper Creek and Lower Creek. Because I was like, just because I had people with me.
What was the conversation between you and the other leader like?
Well, he was supremely confident in where we were headed.
Okay. Kind of like you?
Yeah, well, no, I was not supremely confident, but he had hiked this area before and was supremely confident that he knew where we were at and where we were going. My confidence in him at that point, however, was becoming a little shaky, especially when we were crawling on all fours through rhododendron.
So where did the idea to come and go do that particular trail?
I think it was his idea.
Okay, because he had done it before.
Because he had done it before.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah. It's,
so maybe there's something. There's also a little life lesson for you there as a
ask some questions. In retrospect, I should have asked a lot more questions because I was the person in charge.
Okay, all right.
They were just helping out, and so eventually it all fell back to me.
Yes, it did.
Yep.
But it worked out.
It worked out. Have you ever been lost? Like truly lost?
Like you said, in the micro sense, where I was out in a wilderness area, deer hunting, and so I was looking for a particular spot, and I thought I'd found it. Then I realized I wasn't where I thought I was, so I tried to backtrack, and as I backtracked, nothing started to look familiar.
Right.
And then that's where I realized, man, I don't really know where I'm at. Now I had my phone and GPS, so I got it. I got it out in order to help me. But I was trying to do it by sight.
Yeah.
Right. With that. And when I couldn't do it by sight, that's where I really thought, wow, I am really turned around.
Yep.
And I've never really appreciated how easy it is to get turned around because I'm usually on a trail. Yeah. Right. I'm usually on a trail. I'm in an area I'm familiar with. So when I hear about these guys and gals that are hiking and they get turned around, I have a lot of sympathy for them. It doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much, especially if you're in a place where you're not too familiar with. Yeah. And the reality is, I was actually very familiar with this area. So in the macro sense, I could find my way out. But this particular patch of land where I was wandering around, I was thinking, good grief, this is not looking familiar. I was just here. What is going on?
Yeah. My dad, I think it was my dad and I stumbled. It was either my dad and I or he and my brother. There was a couple, and a girl was leading a guy, and the guy was visually impaired, and so she was the guide, but she was lost. But he kept trying to tell her that they were going the wrong way because they crossed a creek, and he knew they weren't supposed to cross a creek. He was using his other, he actually had a better bearing not being able to see than she did seeing.
Right.
Because he had kind of knew they had gotten off course.
Have you ever been in a car and you're driving somewhere that you've driven a lot, but you're in the back or you're in the chair and you get your eyes closed. You're kind of in that twilight of between sleeping, and you're trying to. And you realize, I know where I'm at, just based on the turns and the speed of the car. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I remember that a lot as a kid, that I would do that.
When we were coming back, I was on a cross-country trip in an 18-wheeler, coming back from, actually, Alaska. So we were driving from Alaska to Greensboro. And it was that last stint that we switched drivers in West Virginia. So I was now in the sleeper bunk. I wasn't driving. And I had just had a Starbucks and a Cinnabon.
Right.
I didn't plan that right.
Yeah.
So I had a hard time falling asleep. I really wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
But the whole trip back from the West Virginia Turnpike all the way back to Greensboro, I just about could envision where I was based on the speed and what the vehicle was doing. Weaving in and out of traffic, or was it pulling up a hill, or was it cruising down a hill, even down to getting off at Colfax, and then making those turns that make our way back to the parking lot.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's your body gets used to certain things.
I mean, that's pretty amazing that we can do that.
Yeah.
I think my kids have said that they've had that exact same sensation, that they were in the back, they kind of woke up, but they knew where they were based on.
I've seen my kids kind of wake up because I think they get that sensation that they're
close to home.
They're close to home.
It's time. Yeah, it's time to get up.
Time to wake up. So, it don't sound right. It's probably time for you to wake up during this episode if you've dozed off.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah. You've come to the end of another That Don't Sound Right.
Hey, before we close, we want to thank everyone again for listening. If this is your first time and enjoyed the conversation, would you consider hitting the subscribe button on the platform that you use? Think about giving us a rating and leaving us a review. But for those that you have been with us for a while, we thank you too. We thank you that you get it, what we're doing, and that you're participating with your friends and family and with us.
And promote us, because we don't promote ourselves very well.
As we learned on the last episode.
That's right. That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSR Podcast in conjunction with Camel City Studios. I am your co-host, Cecil Davis, and I'm also your sound engineer. Your web designer and other host is Peter Billman. Emily is our graphic designer. Giorgio is our product tester. Brent is our brand ambassador. And as always, listener number one is Scott. All right, so until next Saturday night, keep talking.
And stay curious.